Well, I've drawn a three-legged stool, but I hope you don't think we're going to be making one. Certainly not as bad as my drawing. Why I've drawn a three-legged stool is it's an idea. It's an idea that I want to give you, especially when you're beginning. It's a concept of how wood carving works, something that's very important for you to understand. And I think the three-legged stool is a very good metaphor or analogy for it. The thing about a three-legged stool is that each leg is important. You can't take away one leg without the whole thing not working. So in wood carving, there are three elements that go together to make up a wood carving. And you as a beginner, or even as somebody with some experience, want to really be at home with and master and feel comfortable with these three elements. So what are these three elements? Well, the first one is wood. When I started wood carving, all I really knew about wood was that it grew on trees. And that's essentially where you've got to start. You've got to start understanding the material that you're using, how it grows in the tree, what makes things strong, what makes things weak, what makes a good wood for carving, what makes a bad wood for carving, all that sort of thing. Now, trees and wood is very available, so don't hesitate in looking at wood and trying to understand different species, what carvers are using for different projects. Like on this website, why, for example, would somebody choose a piece of wood like this, which has all sorts of things and knots going on for a project, or they might choose something like this, which is very bland, very plain, and so on. Different woods have different qualities, and you need to understand, as a carver, their strengths and their weaknesses, because that's the material you're going to be using. So the second element is in the using of it, and that means tools. So tools are what you use to make your carving happen. So it's not just the type of tool, the shape of the tool this way or that way. It's how you hold it, your techniques of carving, different techniques and so on, the sharpening of the tool, how that affects the carving. That's a very, very important aspect of wood carving. Obviously, I think we all know that, and we tend to spend a lot of time working on this aspect, but it's very doable. You know, once you've learned to sharpen, and you can sharpen, that's the job done. Once you're able to hold the tools well and safely, again, that's the job done, and it's all about practice and working. The important thing about the tools are really you have to see them as a sort of interface. It's where you and the project meet. They're that important. So they certainly have to have a lot of consideration, but remember, it's just one aspect of the whole stool, one leg. So the third leg of the stool, and in some ways I think probably more important, is the design. Design, in this case, means your idea, what it is you're going to carve. It doesn't matter whether the design, the idea comes from this website, or you take this design and change it, or you have something completely different. The design is what you're carving. Now the thing is, as you design, you have to think about those other two legs of the stool. You have to think about whether you've got the right tools. Are they big enough, small enough, bent enough, and so on? And if not, then you've got to think about modifying your design to fit your tools. You also need to think about the wood. How is it going to work within the carving? Is it going to be strong enough in some elements? Is the design going to be weak? If so, how do we make that element, that weak element, strong? Tying it to something or altering it so the grain of the wood runs in it. So we have to be aware of the wood and the tools even as we design. That's why a lot of designs that are drawn are actually very difficult or photographed, very difficult to carve, because a drawing is not a carving in wood. So you've got to think about that. And the other thing I'd say about designing is that you never want to give too little time to it. it's important to understand that when you're designing, you can take as long, if not longer, to design the piece, to think about the piece, to worry about all those aspects of tools and wood, than it is to actually carve it. Right at the beginning here, we're going to be doing this little fish on our website, and I've started with a few little drawings, and I've gone to another drawing, and this is an interesting one. There, I went to this drawing here, which I rather liked, and then I went to this drawing, and what you can see in here are some notes about how I think the wood would go, the grain, how it's going to be attached here to be strong, and so on. So all that is thought through, but it's in the context of wood, and that's really the point I want to make, the idea I want to give across to you. There are not three separate things, tools or techniques, wood and design. They are absolutely integrated like a three-legged stool, and you take one aspect, one aspect doesn't work, is wrong, is making the thing uncarvable, whatever, the whole thing doesn't work. They all have to work together, and you need to be thinking about that right from the very start. The three-legged stool of wood carving.